Welcome to FedScoop TV. I'm Wyatt Cash, your host, and we're at the 8th annual Lowering the Cost of Government IT conference. And today I'm with Jeff Ward. Jeff's Vice President for Federal at IBM MAS 360. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Wyatt. Appreciate being here.
Great. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about advances in IT that agencies should be looking towards to boost efficiency for their missions, while obviously driving savings. And I know you're kind of in the mobility space, so
Right.
maybe you could tell us more specifically in that area, some of the opportunities there.
I was going to say, with a generic question about efficiencies and being the mobility guy, the obvious answer is mobility.
Mobility.
I mean, if you look at, for instance, what GSA has done with their hoteling concept, you know, where they've got 6,000 people, I think, using the spaces for 2,000 people. So that alone, in terms of telework, in terms of footprint and real estate savings, is an obvious answer to lowering the cost of government. The key, obviously, with mobility is providing the technology securely and quickly, and that's the real trick. And certainly where we've cut our teeth as MAS 360 and now part of IBM is the ability to keep up with that pace of change. And that's you know, if you try to move to mobility but are hindered by whether it's acquisition process or compliance process, not to negate security, but you've got to rethink it and how you achieve those compliance standards while keeping up with the pace of change. Because if you don't, if you lag behind, you actually, in my opinion, that's less secure than staying on that front edge as companies provide newer ways to secure mobile IT.
Well, we talk a lot about modernization. How does mobile and these new security layers in a mobile environment actually maybe help improve modernization?
Well, I think, again, the obvious answer is end-of-lifing legacy systems, which obviously are a cost burden, I think, not only in hardware, power consumption, and it's all this move when when the federal CIO, the first one came in back in '08, it was all about cloud first, green IT, shared services, all those things are driving towards cost savings and modernization. So you get rid of legacy hardware, you get rid of data centers. I mean, those are physical cost savings, and now, gosh, think of it as quality of life. How is the federal government going to attract that new generation of kids coming out of school that don't want to be tethered to a desk? They want to work from coffee shops, from home, on the road. And at IBM and with MAS 360, we think we provide a platform to do that from both a productivity standpoint and, frankly, a security standpoint. And there's an argument in the mobility world: should you be focusing on security or should you be focusing on productivity? A lot of the analysts will say productivity. At IBM, it's all about security first, certainly enabling the productivity, but you got to deliver it. Certainly here in DC, and certainly from IBM's perspective, as the world's largest security company, securely, or it's really not going to get you anywhere.
Well, you mentioned cloud, and we're 5 years into the government's cloud-first strategy, 5+, and obviously cloud and mobile sort of converge to really enable a new level of modernization. How would you describe where agencies are at currently, and what's different from even maybe a year ago?
That's a great question, and something that we believe strongly in, largely because we've always delivered mobility from a cloud-based platform.
Yes.
And if you think about it, these mobile devices, they're not sitting behind the firewall, right? They're out in this proverbial cloud. So how you can manage a mobile device from an appliance that's behind a firewall, it's anathema, I think, to the whole concept. And so we went with that, 15, 20 years ago. And fortunately it's playing out where the early adopters of mobile technology were on those appliance-based systems because that's what they were used to and that's what was comfortable. But now everybody's trying to figure out how to do it from the cloud. We're already there. Now, how do you get the government to adopt the cloud? That's interesting, right? People talk a lot about it, but when it comes down to it, for instance, we're working with an agency now takes 15 minutes to spin up the portal. They're enrolling devices, they're managing devices. Great, we want to move forward. It went into the approval process, and there's 9 different committees that have to approve it because it's a cloud-based solution, which to me, I think that's the biggest roadblock to adopting it, is they're still using legacy acquisition, legacy compliance, legacy approvals on a technology that's meant to go fast. So again, I'm not suggesting that we, or that the government, lowers the security standards, but we've got to figure out a way to go faster. Taking, 6 months for 9 committees to approve a cloud technology. I think the federal CTO, Tony, mentioned this morning, if we don't go faster, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, briefly in the time we have left, we talk about security. There's a security around the mobile environment, and there's that working in the larger context of security across the network. What do you see industry can do to help agencies accelerate their security, and especially in light of the limited budgets they have to work with?
Yeah, I think the best thing, and where IBM is focusing in particular, is I was really happy when IBM acquired Master 60 a couple years ago, because we were plugged down into now their mobile-first ecosystem, and that applies, whether it's IBM or anybody else. Security has to be looked at holistically, and so you've got to be able to tie these. I think again today somebody threw out 40 different systems typically with an agency of security. An analyst is brought to their knees trying to get feeds from all 40 of those and make sense of it. There's just not enough time in the day, there's not enough bandwidth, there's not enough compute power. So if you can bring in what IBM refers to as cognitive analytics, not to replace that human, but to augment them to do, I know cliche, more with less, but really to get all these feeds from disparate endpoints, tie it all together, and now you're doing proactive security instead of reactive security. I think that's really the ticket to keeping up with that pace of change, keeping up with a rapidly changing threat environment in security. You have to do it from a cognitive and an analytics standpoint that ties all these things together, and that's whether it's mobile or any of the other things, app security, ID management, all the things that bake into security in a mobile environment.
Well, that certainly makes sense given the scale of threats and the need to augment that and supplement humans trying to just keep up with it all. So, hey, well, thank you for sharing some of these ideas with us. Really appreciate it. Jeff Ward, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And we thank our audience as well for being with us. Look for more of our programs on fedscoop.com and on our YouTube channel. Thanks very much.